Reno Turricartney.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'm pleased to make a contribution at the committee stage on part one of this bill. And just picking up, Mr Chair, on the previous speaker, where she mentioned about the balance, that the attempt at the balance being made with this bill, and that is exactly the language that has been removed from the purpose clause, and we commend we acknowledge the actions of the Minister and her officials in attempting to address what were two main issues, I guess. The one, firstly, the failure of the bill to actually meet the obligations of the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, and secondly, also bringing greater alignment with the RMA. Now, there has been an attempt to obviously bring greater alignment to the RMA, but it is arguable that the clause 10, purpose clause, does not go far enough in actually making sure that we meet our obligations under the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea, in making sure that preservation and protection of the marine environment is paramount. So I know that this has been debated quite a lot in this committee stage, Mr Chair, but I just wanted to express our disappointment as well that we couldn't give further consideration of these amendments which were hastily pushed into the SOP at select committee stage. But I would like actually to use my opportunity on this call, Mr Chair, to talk in support of two SOPs, supplementary order papers. The first is in the name of the Honourable Parekura Horomia, and that SOP seeks to amend Clause 14, the Treaty of Waitangi Clause. And as Ms Sage mentioned in her contribution, Mr Chair, there is a hierarchy in terms of our environmental legislation. And what this SOP seeks to do is make sure that we make sure that the treaty obligations on the Crown are paramount, and there is primacy to the Crown and iwi relationship actually up front in Clause 14. At the moment, as currently drafted, the obligations towards tangata whenua are pushed down, are relegated to notifications by the EPA on applications and the like. So that doesn't go far enough, and indeed it is not consistent with many other general clauses of actually, we can't water down the treaty. We cannot water down the treaty. We must make sure that the general obligations between the Crown and tangata whenua and iwi are actually restored and put up front into those clauses. And so I commend the Honourable Parekura Horomia's supplementary order paper 96. The second supplementary order paper, Mr Chair, is in the name of the Honourable Annette King, and that proposed amendment is to give recognition to the Moriori people. Now, the Honourable Annette King and I, we share the Chatham Islands in our electorates, and it goes without saying that the Moriori are the indigenous peoples of the Chatham Islands. We call, before there was Te Waiponamu, the actual name of the South Island was Te Waka a Maui. So for everyone who knows their Māori mythology, Te Waka a Maui is the canoe of Maui who fished up the North Island. The Chatham Rise, back in the day, was a stretch of land that stretched all the way out to Rakiura. And so the Chatham Rise could well have been the mast on the waka of Maui. But the Chatham Rise is a highly significant feature on the ocean floor. It is probably the most abundant fishery in the world, and it supports a lot of the economy, not only on the mainland, but also on the Chatham Islands. And also there is a huge interest in the Chatham Rise in regards to oil and gas exploration. And so the Moriori people and the community of the Chatham Island as a whole gave a very compelling submission, and although I'm not a member of the Select Committee, I did read their submission. Mr. Chair, I did read carefully the submission from the Hokitehi Moriori Trust, and their submission, their plea to have recognition of Moriori and their tikanga recognised through clause in the bill. And I have been part of that. 25 years ago, I was privileged to be on the Chatham Islands at the unveiling of the memorial statue to Tommy Solomon, who was the first full-blooded Moriori. The last full-blooded Moriori. Those events were the start of the, as they say, the Lazarus-like resurrection of the amazing people of the Moriori. And there has been recognition of Moriori right through, for instance, the Māori fishery settlements. But in terms of this legislation, there is no direct recognition, and therefore I do support the Honourable Annette King's SOP that Moriori are given specific recognition through the definition of Māori, that it does include also Moriori. Likewise, tikanga Māori will also refer to the tikanga of the Moriori as well. And they do have their own unique reo, their own unique language. I actually haven't been taught in that, so I won't attempt to actually articulate the Moriori language, their reo. But I guess we want to support and make sure that we give recognition to that community, because there is a lot of, as I mentioned, a huge contribution that the Chatham Islands does make, and potentially there are significant development activities that will be taking place on the Chatham Rise through, following through on the passing and passage of this legislation, Mr. Speaker. So I just want to recap Honourable Parekura Horomia's Treaty of Waitangi. We want to make sure that the Treaty of Waitangi is given primacy. It is the general obligation on the Crown, and I support his Supplementary Order Paper 96, and likewise Supplementary Order Paper 104 from the Honourable Annette King, which does give recognition to the Moriori people and their special relationship of their culture and traditions with regards to the marine environment.
Paul Goldsmith.
Thank you.